Okay, so now we're finally going to move on to the grade proper. We're going to start grading this and we're going to work our way right the way through to the end. Now, it's important to state that what we don't do is go through and grade every shot in fine detail and then hand it over in one pass. We work with multiple passes. This first video, this is going to be the first pass of this project. We're going to be going through and getting everything up to a fairly good standard, but it's going to be a bit rough in places, a few things to iron out. We're not finishing it in the space of 2 or 3 hours. That's not how it works. We do our first pass, we send it back to the client for feedback, we take any feedback into account then and there, because that's going to waste a lot less time than spending 8 hours on something, thinking that it's finished and then going back and having to change a load of things because the client has a different idea from us. So we're going to start on our first pass, and our client has chosen this look, 132 in my case. So what we can do is make a new album, and we're going to call this first pass, and we'll drag this into there, and then we'll give that a name, or give it a better name, and get our capitals right. There we go. So now we're in a good place to start working. So what we'll do is we'll go back to our versions and we'll get clean blue v warm and we'll load that up. And now we're back to the correct version of the first clip we performed look development on. So the client's very happy with this. They think the face might be a little bit bright and the shirt might be a little bit blown out, so we can try and get that sorted just now. So let's sort out the face first. There we go. And now we'll fix. And to do that, I went onto the node with my face vignette and brought the offset down a bit. Then we'll go into our next primary node, and here we're going to bring, let's go back to Luma, we're going to bring the very top bits down. So these dusty bits here, they're bits of specular highlight, and they're primarily places in the practical light reflections up here, bits on his face, but a lot of it are the very bright highlights on his white shirt. And we're just going to bring those down a little bit because it's looking a little bit hot and blown out. There we go. And that now brings them down a bit so they're a bit more sensible. Also, it means that the face is more of a focal point. We still had some very bright details here. And bringing those down brings our focus back to our contributor's face, which is the all-important focal point in this shot. So, cool. We have now got a finished still we can use for our reference. So what we'll do is we'll go back, and now what we can start to do is group our shots together. We're going to go over shot grouping just now, and this is a very important thing, a very useful thing for saving a lot of time. We can match shots, or we can match any shots together and put them in a group so that a grade that hits one of them hits all of them. Obviously, the most practical way of doing this is to match shots of the same angle and the same subject because they are more likely to take the same grade. So we just select, hold Control or Command, click multiple clips, in this case these three, then right click and choose add into a new group, and we give that group a name, and we'll say woman in white shirt mid. And then we'll go through and we'll do the same for the close-ups, and we're going to go through and we're going to do this for all of our shots, get them all together in the right groups, and that's going to save a lot of time later on. So let's just go through and check for any others from that angle. I think it's only 2. Add into a new group, woman in white shirt CU. And this guy's the board director. So he's quite an important one. Throughout we want him to be looking good. We don't want any issues on these shots because this guy is at the top of the totem pole. And add into a new group, board director mid. Then we'll go through and get his close-ups. I don't think there are many close-ups of him. Oh no. I stand corrected. Okay, so I've gone ahead and I've put everything into the correct groups. You should go and do the same. Put this video on pause and go ahead and do that. Get all your ducks in a line and we're going to be able to move much more efficiently. So what we can do, we've got this here. We can reset the grade. Now that we've put this clip in a group, when we click it we can see a green chain icon. Every other clip with the green chain icon is in the same group as this clip. So if I click on another one, you can see the mid shot of this woman here with the long hair. It's got a green chain on all the relevant clips. Now, we have several dots up here now, whereas we had two before. We start with clip, and clip only affects the individual clip we have highlighted. If I do something here, and go to the next version of this shot, nothing has happened. Yeah, clip only affects the clip we're currently on. We have one at the start, which is group pre-clip, and the third one along, which is group post-clip. Now, group pre-clip and group post-clip both happen to all clips in the group at the same time. I am now in group pre-clip, and if I make an adjustment in here and go to the next clip in the group, that adjustment, that grade, has carried across. This makes a very efficient method of working. So now, because we know that the light is very controlled and doesn't change much or if at all throughout this shoot, we can actually grade a series of shots very efficiently using our group. So, one more important thing. Group pre-clip happens before clip, and group post-clip happens after clip. So we have three steps. Group pre-clip happens first, clip then happens to the individual clip, and then group post-clip happens to everything in the group, but after any operations we put in clip. And there's one more thing, two things in the end, to keep track of. We can't track or animate any windows in the two group panels, only in clip. That's because Resolve isn't going to carry the animation between two clips in the same group. So if we want to track or animate or rotoscope, we have to do that in the clip window. We have to do that here, and it's only going to hit one clip at once. So we really have to think about whether or not manual tracking or animation or roto is really worth our time. In a lot of cases there are simpler solutions to the same problem. It looks like you might have to roto and do a load of keying and everything first. Very often there's a simpler way to get there, usually using primary tools and a few curves. You don't always have to go to the really time-consuming high-end stuff, and there's a real skill in making that judgment and deciding what you need to use and when. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy our confirmed look into our group pre-clip on the board director's mid-shots. We're then going to go to our face vignette, because this can't track, in the group settings, and we're going to delete it. This vignette is fine because it doesn't move. The key will carry over, and that's fine. So now we can be reasonably happy that we've got our signed look, and it's now applied to a number of these clips in our timeline. Okay, so I'm happy with this now. For the purposes of a first pass, this is fine. I would go back and I would reinstate the face vignette in each clip, tracked and everything, during the second pass. We're going to come back to that. We're not finishing it immediately, we're getting it up to a good place, pretty much. So now we're going to go through and we're going to start working on the other clips to match them up. So let's go and work on the close-up of our board director here. So okay, we've got a bit of a green push on this one. We do want to try and get the face in the right area. We want to try and match the contrast between the two faces here. That looks alright. Okay, so we're very, very green here, so we need to go and fix this. Let's bring our parade back up so we know what we're doing. So I can see a strong green push here. We need to fix that. Okay, those shadows are a little bit harsh. And that highlight in the back there is blown out a little bit, so we'll just... There we go, and maybe bring that down as well. Right, for our basic primary, those two nodes will do. We've got our contrast sorted and we've started to address our colour. We've got a very greenish looking tint in the shadows in the back here. We're going to have to deal with that. And you can see this area here corresponds to this low reading and it's higher in green. So we can give lift a bit of a nudge towards magenta, but I suspect that that's going to tint the rest of the image. So I'll bring back the correction I have made in gamma, and that's now looking much more neutral. Nice. So now, next thing I want to do is sort out this weird cyan colour, make it blue, and sort out the blue on our shirt. So onto the secondary curves. Let's sort out the cyany green first. Now, this is tilting towards green if we take a look on the vector scope. We've got green coming down here between cyan and blue. Nothing's really pointing directly at blue. I don't want things to go magenta, so I'm going to keep that there. And now that's brought a lot of this green over. So now the next thing I want to do, and on this same node, this node we're going to deal with the green and the blue. And I'm going to get hold of the blue, and I'm going to crank up the saturation. Okay, I don't see any noise issues. Let's just bring up our... Now you can begin to see the similarity. Now you can begin to see the similarity between our original and this shot. So now we just need to sort out the skin and maybe a little bit of a tweak to our contrast, but we are getting there, clearly. So now we'll make a new node, and this time we're going to deal with the skin. Right, so now we're going to sort out the skin. In this case, we can quite easily key out the skin. Okay, so we've got some unwanted bits there, so what we can then do is combine that with a shape. And we'll just track that on. Aha, of course we can't combine that with a shape and track because we're in group, obviously. Okay, in that case we'll change tack. We won't use the HSL keyer. We'll use another curve. We can go through trying to do that, but it would be quite time consuming, and it's always better. So what we can do... Okay. Now looking at him, he might be a little bit yellow compared to our original, so what we'll do is we'll make a hue versus hue around the yellow. And we'll tilt that up ever so slightly. We'll rotate that hue and just make sure that we do get a nice proper match between the two. Right, in terms of saturation and hue, I'd say that's good. The contrast isn't quite there, but again, this is first pass. We'll go through second pass and we'll put the face vignettes back in on the clip. So now we have these three. In fact, he's probably a little bit too saturated now that I look at it, so let's just take that down a bit. Right, cool. That's a pretty good match. We can go back and we can refine that further in our second pass, so let's move on. We're going to prioritize everything in a group first, then we're going to come back to these one-offs. I didn't put a green flag down on a master shot this time, but because I did the look development on this, I pretty much made the decision that this was my master shot, so now everything is being matched to this look. So we go ahead and match along. What I will do is I will take a still. Now, one important thing when you're working with groups and taking stills, the still will store the grade from whatever window up here in the node tree was active at the time the still was taken. If I take a still from here when clip is active and all my grading is in group, it's not going to do anything. I can try and copy that across and nothing will happen. If I take a still from when group pre-clip is active, I then get the grade in there and I can tell if it was taken in pre or post because it will then say pre or it will say post afterwards next to the still to show me where it came from. So in this case I want to take a still from group pre-clip and we can check if things will copy across. So let's go on to this clip and we'll take care of all of our contributors first and then we'll deal with our B-roll afterwards. Okay, this one's probably going to take a bit more work. Nothing will copy across, so let's get started. Let's go from scratch. Got a very big problem with yellow light, which is probably down to a combination of sunlight and tungsten and only having color balanced for one. In this case it's fairly simple to correct. Okay, we want to keep an eye on her skin there. This isn't FS7, its treatment of skin tones isn't ideal. You very often get a weird porcelain kind of effect and things go very pink. Let's just take a look. Okay, this one's going to need quite a lot of work, but we are up to that, so we'll go ahead and get that done. Okay, this is now getting closer. Now I've been grading in clip by mistake, so what I'll do is I'll grab a still, I'll reset this grade, I'll go back into group pre-clip, and then I'll just paste the grade into there. Very common mistake, very easy to fix, so don't worry too much about it. Okay, so that's our basic primary. Now we can move on. We'll just cluster these up a bit. So there we go. We've got our kind of primary cluster up there, and now we're going to move into secondary work. So her skin is actually looking okay there. It's these blue bits that concern me. We want to try and get the blue to match up. So let's see how far a curve will take us. We don't want to rush straight into a time-consuming HSL or bit of rotoscoping if we can avoid it. Let's bring the vector scope up so we know what we're doing. There we go. Now if I really go for this, I'm going to start to introduce a bit of noise, because we're getting quite a lot of yellowy green. What I don't want is for this to spill on over into some areas of the skin tone. And this is quite an aggressive curve, so we will see if we get away with this. Okay, that's starting to make strange things happen. So that's about as far as the curve can take us. That's a nice start, but it's still not quite there. Let's see if we get the same out of the saturation curve. Let's make sure we bring up a nice clean blue. Okay, we're going to need to do a bit more work on there. We need to try and deal with these yellowy bits. So let's just see. Okay, we do have some camera movement, so we can't just make a garbage mat and think that'll help. So let's just see what we can do. This is the kind of shot that does take a while. If we start to lose a lot of time to this, we'll put a yellow flag on it and we'll move on. So we can actually get a pretty good key on that. I'm quite happy with that. Maybe slim it down a bit so we're not going to make any odd stuff happen. And we'll clean our white out and we'll blur it right out. Okay, let's see how far we get with the garbage mat. We do have camera movement throughout. And we'll have to come back in and we'll have to check. It may be that we do a lot of our work on a clip-by-clip basis in this one instead of relying on the group, but we'll see. So now what we can do... There we go, and now we can start to fix this wall here, make it nice and blue and clean. And we can bring that back under control. What we want to avoid is this kind of middle band here, where some hues which are already blue are being picked up in our HSL key. So what we can then do is just bring it down slightly. And we want to try and avoid a visible join in the two hues here, and we can avoid that by blurring the living hell out of it. Cool. So now we've fixed that blue wall. Now I'm going to want to spot check a few more of these and make sure okay, there is some spill onto that thumb. It's very, very short. It's not there for very long. We could justifiably leave that, but let's try and minimize the impact we're having on skin tones. There we go, that's much better. Let's just go through and check if we have any other instances of this shot. One here. No, we need to check this again. Okay, we have a hard edge up there, which is not acceptable. You can kind of see it happen, so what we will do is just soften that out. And there is a bit of a change there, but especially once we vignette the face and bring that out, I don't think there's going to be a problem. Okay, I think that's looking pretty good. I think that's in first pass condition. When we start to garbage mat in the group settings, we go through and we check every shot as we're working. We don't want to think, oh, this is absolutely fine, get so far, and then realise, oh, hang on a second, this is awful, we need to fix everything. So, of course, there's no secondary there. Right, now next one, we'll just put that in its own little cluster up there, knowing that's to deal with the blues. And now the next one, we can start to take a look at the skin. I actually think the skin is looking pretty good already. I think with a face vignette, that's going to be okay. I don't feel the need to really mess around with her skin tone too much. Looking at distractions in this shot, one region kind of glares out at me, and that's down here in the bottom left. We have a very saturated shadow here, and that's exposed a lot of noise in this image. So I'm just going to put a curve in here. And I'm just going to try and bring that down a little bit so it's not too fierce. I don't want it to look charcoal and drab, but I don't want it to look bizarre either. There we go. So there to there, it just draws less of the eye. Now let's take a look at our parade. Okay, we've got a few things clipping, so what we can do is go back into our primary RGB curve, and we will just bring that very top down, and we will add a Lumv set. And we'll just clean those out a little bit because they're glowing a kind of weird high-vis yellow. Now when we're doing this, we want to be careful that we're not actually hitting the face and making her look porcelain. Just pull a bit of the colour out of those hot spots up there, and that's okay. Right, let's just make sure that we haven't interfered with the skin. Cool. Right, I am happy to leave that there. I'm happy to say that that's in first pass condition. We're going to go back, add a face vignette. We could maybe add some more vignettes later on. We'll see what the client thinks, but for now, that shot is okay. We'll move on to the next one. We don't want to spend hours and hours and hours on a single shot. That's a very inefficient way to work. We had a few problems there. We solved them. Fine. Now onto this one. What we will do is we will take a still. Make sure we have, in case we happen to need the grade to copy onto anything else later on, we'll take that just now. And now we will start to grade this one. Now we're probably not going to want to stretch everything out here because her face will glow and look all odd. We probably want to bring it up about that far.